Good morning and welcome to We Got Options with the Doctor and Son. We're glad that you joined us this morning. Wanted to just jump in and start talking a little bit today about emotional self care for Black women. This is a topic that came up and wanted to talk about it because I think sometimes we always talk about self care, self care, self care, but I wanted to go into a little bit more of the emotional self care because I believe when we're talking about not just Black women, but people in general, we all need to be more mindful of our emotions and more mindful of trying to calm our emotions to a more feasible state or be in a better mood for the most part. So, Tremaine, that's something we're going to start talking about today. And when we start talking about emotional self care, just in general, Tremaine, what are some things that come up for you when you just, when I just say emotional health care? I mean, emotional self care.
Um, I would say, taking time to reflect on how things are affecting you, what, may be bothering you in, the workplace or anywhere, and seeing how you can minimize those problems.
Oh, definitely. Absolutely. I think that's a great place to start when you're thinking about emotional self care. Basically, when we're talking in terms of emotional self care with everyone, we are talking about how we are able to kind of sit through sometimes uncomfortable things that are happening or uncomfortable situations that come up, whether it be in, on the home front, whether it be with friends out in the community and things of that nature, or whether it's within our career, our jobs, and things that we have to do on a daily basis. It's just really being getting to a point where before, and I'll say this, in 2023 maybe you blew off a few times, had some anger moment or some rage moments or some moments where you were not really happy with your response, your emotional response to different things. And in 2024, it's kind of looking at working towards, kind of getting it more in check, being more in check with how you are emotionally handling different things in life, kind of working from that emotional intelligence standpoint, but getting to a point where emotionally you are taking care of yourself and you are making sure that when things are happening that you are putting off, you are given the right vibes in order to handle situations without creating other symptoms that come along with real stressful situations such as headaches, tension, fatigue and tiredness, things of that nature. And sometimes even the fact that when we're talking about our emotions, we're talking about the fact that sometimes when we're not, emotionally stable or emotionally in a good place, we can, dip into depression, we can dip into anxiety, we can dip into just feeling overwhelmed in our feelings and unable to share those feelings. Stress levels go up. Thinking about on the physical side, people may have high blood pressure. People can definitely cause, different things that might even, trigger a heart attack or a stroke as, individuals are getting older. But, we have to think about it also. We have young people that are having heart attacks and strokes also. So when we're talking about things that we get emotional over, we have to be more in tune with figuring out what that quote unquote emotional intelligence look like. So we're getting ourselves to a place where we can handle things better. And so that's one of the big things, in speaking of emotional self-care, but from a Black woman standpoint, I love that when we talk about emotional self care for Black women, Black women, again, going back to some research I was doing all last year in 2023 about the mental health, the state of mental health for Black women are really, really strong women, yes. But sometimes when we're talking about a Black woman being a strong woman, we don't have any idea or understand how and why we are considered to be a strong woman or how we became the strong Black woman. And that was something that I wanted to tap into, because when I'm thinking as far as thinking about Black women going back and thinking about the emotional intelligence and the emotional self-care that have to come along with some of the things that we have endured as Black women, there's a lot there. There's a lot to think about. And I think for the most part, when we're talking about, understanding why emotional self-care is important for Black women, I say on terms of we need to have different terms to start thinking about different ways to process things and how we consider different things that go on in a lot of Black women's life. A lot of Black women take on a lot of different roles in their families, in their household, as far as hanging out with their in their social circles, also within their careers. So a lot of women take on, a lot of Black women anyway, take on a lot of different roles, and those roles, like wearing those different hats, a lot of times, I have adopted this whole thing called the soft woman era. And the soft woman era is kind of like the soft girl era. It's like being in your own care for yourself and taking care of yourself. And there are like many aspects of taking care of yourself, and what we want to do is jump into this segment talking about some of those things and some of those reasons why it is important for Black women to really take care of themselves and consider their mental health, consider their emotional health, and just consider, how they're doing overall in order to be a full, well rounded individual that, as I like to say, we take care of so many other people, but we have to realize that we have to take care of ourselves first. And if we can take care of ourselves first, then we'll be able to. My little motto is definitely talking about, a little mantra here is definitely talking about the teacup, at the teapot and the teacups. If you're the teapot, you're the Black woman, you're the teapot, you are filling all the teacups around the table, all 6 to 12 teacups, you're filling them up. If you are filling those teacups all day long, then tell me, what is it going to be when that teapot runs dry? You have to go back and you have to rejuvenate. You have to go back. You have to refocus. You have to go back. You have to get some relaxation in. You've got to do these things in order to be able to, care for everyone else. Tremaine, what are some of your thoughts with that when we're talking about really, you know, digging deep and nurturing yourself, understanding yourself, healing yourself so that you'll be able to be there for other people as well, be there for yourself and for other people?
Um, I think that in terms of, being there for other people and, being able to take care of other people, like you say with the teacups and the teapot and the cups, you
Hmm.
say that we give so much, people give so much,
Hmm.
but we're not using time to replenish ourselves.
Yes.
Sometimes you need that time where you're not necessarily having to think about others all the time. You have to think about yourself eventually,
Hmm.
because the more you give, you know, who's giving to you.
Yes. Yes.
The
Yeah.
question comes, who's giving to you? And if nobody's giving to you, then what is the point to give? Then you'll find it harder to give to others.
Exactly. 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 And a lot of times we see a lot of women, Black women, of course. I work with a good many of Black women, of course, but I see a lot of them just, they're worn out. They're completely like drained. They're completely wiped out. And that's one of the things that I always say that, it's hard to see that nowadays, in my generation and the younger generation as well. It's hard to see that. I think it was, I wouldn't say acceptable in the older generation, but it was something that they did. They went to work, they, poured everything into work. They came home wiped out. They, didn't have time for themselves, sometimes didn't have time for the kids, and sometimes just went directly to bed and got up and did it over again the next day. So, just taking care of yourself, that's physical, taking care of yourself, but the emotional part just gets pushed to the back. You know what I mean?
But I don't think it's emotional too,
Mm-hmm.
because finding that reason to get up and keep doing the same thing day in and day out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, you got bills to pay, of course, but it's like you could be doing that with anything.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, it's definitely, a process, and it's something to think about. But I'm glad we have kind of opened the conversation here, and having a little bit of back and forth about this, because I think it's important for us to really consider. Again, I'm going back to the videos and the shows we did last year talking about the state of mental health for Black women. I think it's real important for us to really jump in and dive into this whole conversation, and keeping the lines of communication open when it comes down to just mental health in general, but definitely the state of where Black women are, and dealing with, you know, taking care of themselves and taking care of, the whole family for the most part. But with that, we're going to go to a commercial break, and we'll be back after these messages. Insightful Options, PLLC, providing counseling, consultation, and DWI services in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. Contact us at www.insightful-options.com, 704-492-1105. And we're back with We Got Options with the Doctor and Son. And we're going to continue our conversation talking about emotional self-care for Black women. And as we're, communicating about emotional self-care for Black women, to me, it gives us an opportunity to reflect on kind of what's gone on in the last year. It gives us time to reflect on, where we're trying to go right now. And with that being said, I think talking about some of the various things you can do for self care, and some of the various things you can do that's particularly for emotional self care, would be a great place to start for us. So that's one of the things that I'm going to start talking about. And Tremaine, so I'm just going to, talk about it, and you can chime in on some of the different aspects of the different self-care methods that we could definitely do, that women can do for themselves. I know you probably got some great ideas, but to get started, one of the first things that I always think about when I'm considering and thinking about what can individuals do for self-care, emotional self-care, definitely setting boundaries. So when we're talking about setting boundaries, and I think many of you know, I mentioned that I do have a 8-week journal about setting boundaries. When we're talking about setting boundaries, that is something that is so emotional, and it grabs people, because if you don't have boundaries set, not having boundaries in place can do a doozy on you emotionally, because it can make you feel like you're not in control of what you want as a person. Not having boundaries can make you feel make your esteem feel definitely lower, because you feel like you're letting people walk all over you. There's a whole magnitude of things that go along with not being able to set those healthy boundaries and put those in place, when you're communicating, when you're working with people, when you're in a family situation. So setting healthy boundaries is a big a big step for a lot of people, considering that the boundary that you have is not, it just doesn't feel right. I always tell people say, how do I know the boundary is unhealthy? And I'll tell them, well, if it just doesn't feel right, that every time, you and your sister go out, you pay for lunch, and you want to pay for lunch sometimes, but you would like it to be maybe a, mutual agreement where sometimes she'll pay and sometimes you'll pay, and go back and forth, versus maybe sometimes an individual can be inconsiderate where they're picking the highest place to go to, the most expensive place to go to for lunch, when they know you're paying for it. And then when they take you out, they take you to the most inexpensive place or whatever. That could be another thing to think about when it comes down to setting boundaries. What are your thoughts with that, Tremaine?
Um, yeah, about that. It's very interesting when it comes down to I mean, I think also with that being said, what you said earlier about people and their money things, it's a very interesting thing when you come to like if there is a monetary gap in your friendship, you
Hmm.
have to like redefine what your friendship is at that point.
Exactly. And
You have
even
to.
E-
Go ahead, go ahead. I'm
I
sorry.
was I was gonna add, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was gonna add not even just monetary gap, moral support gap. You know what I mean? Like I'll tell her what's going on, but she don't tell me nothing that's going on. I'll tell her I feel a certain way, but she don't. You know what I'm saying? It's like having like that support. I'll call her at she'll call me at any time and I'll answer my phone. I'll call her and she don't call me back till next week. You know what I mean? So it could be any of those things. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I mean, it's a lot of of trying to bridge the gap with people.
Yeah. 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 I wanted to put that in there because I didn't want you to think it was just a financial thing. I want to make
Oh,
sure that
no, 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 no.
yeah.
Not at
Yeah,
all.
I didn't think that you thought that, but then I don't want our listeners to think that either. But yeah, it's a boundary, issues, and when people start feeling, a little out of line with things, then yeah, that's where you start to understand that there's like you said a gap in there somewhere that's creating some type of boundary that's probably not the healthiest for everybody, you know?
Yeah. I mean, if they talk to people that you don't associate with, I mean, you associate with the person that you actually associate with when it's just if it's just the two of you.
Exactly.
Because you don't want, all the other interference. Or you don't mess with the other people they mess with.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I feel you. I feel you. So, going back to when we're thinking about different ways that we can actually implement and practice emotional self care, we can also talk about acknowledging and embracing your feelings. That's something that's big. That's something that's really big because a lot of times people want to push those feelings to the side, but if there is something going on, and it kind of piggybacks with healthy boundaries, if there's something going on, you need to talk about it. You need to acknowledge the fact that you feel some kind of way, and you need to acknowledge the fact that embrace the feeling that you're feeling, and realize that, oh, if this is unhealthy or this is dysfunctional, I need to do something about it before it continues to eat away at me.
Yeah, you have to reevaluate where you stand
Mm-hmm.
because if it's too much for you and it involves any other person, you need to let them know as soon as it bothers you and not hold it back because you don't want that to become a problem later.
Exactly. Yeah, I see that so many times in relationships too. So yeah. And then daily practice of gratitude. This is one that is amazing, and I'm going to say it's amazing because I practice this one. Just daily practice of gratitude could be something as simple as writing 3 things you're grateful for in the morning. If you want to, you don't have to do it anymore that day, or you can do 3 things you're grateful for that night, and you didn't have to do it early that day. You can just do it that night. It's totally up to you, but a lot of time practicing gratitude is something that is definitely good for our emotions and definitely helps us process a little bit more and be able to be thankful for where we are and looking at the positivity, the positive things are the more optimistic aspects of things. So what do you think about that, Tremaine? Anything with that daily gratitude, practicing daily gratitude?
Yeah, I mean, it can give you a sense of peace when you know you haven't thought of when you haven't thought of to think of what we are thankful for is a very kind of reassuring thing
Yes, it is.
because you want to feel you want to you don't get that reassurance from anywhere else,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't usually give ourselves time to stop and smell those roses.
Exactly. Yes, yes,
So the journal could possibly help you out with you reevaluating your life.
yeah.
Your life is only as troubled as you want to make it
That's
because
very true.
due to your perceptions.
That's very true. Yes, yes. And then what about eating healthier foods? Like really watching your food intake, eating healthier foods. And I tell people, the more I would say junk food that you add into your body, the worse sometimes you'll feel, or you just feel that normal feeling. But as soon as you start putting more of that the good stuff in your body, your body start feeling a little bit different. So I always tell people, think about what you're putting in your body, because what you're putting in your body does affect your moods and your emotions and how you're feeling. So I tell people a lot of times, be mindful of your food intake, adding some good stuff in there, some fruits and vegetables, and some natural sugars with the fruits that you're eating versus all that processed stuff. So that's always something to consider as well. And again, helping us to feel better, more healthier with, different type of ailments and things of that nature. Um, what about focusing on positivity? Definitely going back to the gratitude thing. Not going back to the gratitude thing, but definitely being in that focused mindset of positivity, though. Any thoughts, Tremaine?
Oh, I mean, like I said before, in terms of you know, what we necessarily give ourselves, we don't give ourselves enough slack to be able to see the good things that we have in our lives.
Absolutely. Agreed. Agreed. Um, Also, when we're talking about different ways that we can definitely get into our soft woman era, would be practicing sleep hygiene. And practicing sleep hygiene is really to each his own. But I like to tell people, I have a sleep hygiene regimen that I do, and that's where I'm in bed by 6, 7, or 8, at least 2 nights a week, where I'm getting it in. I'm sleeping. I'm getting my full, 10 or 12 hours of sleep, and I do that, just to rejuvenate, to reinvigorate myself, to get to a real relaxed state. And then, of course, some of the other things I do, which I'm going to go down the list a little bit here. Meditation, that's one of the things in there as well. And then talking about your spiritual self care. Some people do spiritual self care in different ways. I always tell people spiritual self care is different for everyone. My spiritual self care sometimes is going out on my lawn and walking in the grass and just being one with nature, letting my feet, I will go to the beach, I will let my feet out there in the beach sand as well as the beach water. So there are a lot of different things that people can, and that's very spiritual for me. Even watching the sunrise, the sunset, and watching if I'm at the beach, watching the tides come in and the tides go out. That's really, really something that I definitely like to do. And it works within what I go to as my spirituality, and listening to the birds sing, the trees outside, the grass, just all of that is just a natural state for me. And that's what I really love to do sometimes. But that's something to bring some serene to your life and to bring some calmness to your life. So that's what it does for me. But those are areas also that I think would be great when it comes down to considering practicing more emotional self-care. If you're doing it on a weekly basis, couple of weeks basis, monthly basis. Some people are able to get out in nature every single day, a walk or a hike or something. So those are different things to consider. Also, I've also, thought about as well lifting light weights. Light weights can be not, weights you're actually lifting, but it could be cans out of your kitchen cabinet, just lifting, and getting your strength up slowly but surely. So that's also something to think about as well. And then, of course, get down to practicing mindfulness. Whew, that's a big one. Just being mindful of where you are, and when we're talking about practicing mindfulness, and Tremaine, I'm not sure if you do this a lot. You probably do this more than I probably even think you do it. But it's like being in the moment of what you're eating, to taste the flavors of the food you're eating. Being in the moment, if you are outside and feeling your foot hit the pavement or hit the grass or whatever it is, and just being in the moment, feeling the sun or the heat or the coolness on your skin when you are outside taking a walk or going to the mailbox or whatever the case may be. It's just being in the moment. If you're sitting down and you're relaxing and you're just really enjoying, the warmth in the house or whatever the case may be, the heat that's coming in, the heat that your body's generating, it's just being in the moment. So a lot of times I tell people, practicing mindfulness can be done in several different ways, but doing it in a way where you're just, taking just feeling the feelings is huge. That's one of those big things. So, Tremaine, any thoughts on the ones I just mentioned with the sleep, spirituality, meditation, lifting light weights, and practicing mindfulness? Any thoughts you got on those?
Um, yeah. I mean, you never really think about how much it affects you until you start doing stuff like that.
Yeah. And it really it helps you focus more on your emotions and how you're feeling. Because when we're talking about emotions, I tell people all the time, we're talking about emotions, we're talking about how you're feeling. We're how you're feeling, we're talking about your thoughts, we're talking about, where you are in that moment, like how your feelings, how your thoughts are, and then sometimes even how your behavior come out because of those feelings and those thoughts. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Yeah. So with that, we've mentioned a few more here. I'll go into a little bit more talking about, journaling. That's keeping a journal. Some people actually keep a full-fledged journal. For me, I am one of those persons who come up with different things. So I am coming up with a practice for emotional self-care for Black women journal. And that journal will be one that we're actually have on Amazon probably in the next few months or so. But that one is something that's going to be real important to work with me when I'm working with clients, and definitely focusing on, you taking care of yourself, Black women taking care of themselves, and Black women really being in that moment where they understand that we're in a time and place in our life now that, and it's not just in our life, it's just in the world, in the global whole system, the communities that we're in. It's a time that we really need to focus on our emotional baggage and a lot of our emotional stressors. And having that practice of emotional self-care is going to be something that I feel in the next 3 to 5 years we're going to really need. That I think everyone's going to need a lot of support in the next 4 to 5 years. But in terms of, Black women, we're some of the smartest women, I think, in our population or in our group. We're kind of, some of the smartest women. I believe there was a study done where Black women, I think we ranked almost highest when it came down to, education, and came down to, what we're doing and how we're maneuvering in life. We are, we're up there. So we have figured out how to, of course, be these strong Black women, and we figured out how to maneuver many different systems to get to a point of success in life when it comes down to a lot of us, maneuvering our educational systems, our career systems, and maneuvering with our families as well. So, these are things that I'm really, really, I feel really strong about. And I know in the next few years, there's going to be a shift. And when that shift happens, I am hoping and praying that all Black women, we are, definitely looking at the state of our mental health and the state of our well-being, and we are jumping on it and, looking at the fact of taking care of ourselves more. So with that, I probably went over a little bit longer than needed, but we're going to go to a commercial break and we'll be back after these messages. Hi, this is Dr. Latasha McElwain, and I would like to introduce my first book. The name of my first book is Fragile Brokenness: The Unspoken Secrets That Shape a Pretty Unprotected Girl into a Practicing Clinician and Therapist. My key phrase is, when life gave me lemons, I gave life a doctor. I hope this would be an inspiring read for everyone, with inspiring experiences and heavy experiences that will bring about the importance of being self-aware, dealing with traumas, and being focused on your mental health wellness. The proof is in the journey. I hope you enjoy my book, Fragile Brokenness: The Unspoken Secrets That Shape a Pretty Unprotected Girl into a Practicing Clinician and Therapist. Sales begin December 2023. Hi, we're back with We Got Options with the Doctor and Son. And we are finishing up our conversation where we're talking about emotional self care for Black women. And we're talking about it because, again, like I said, Black women, we got to think about, going into our soft woman era. We need to start really taking care of ourselves so we can be the strong women that we really are, and focusing on our health and being in a good place with everything that's going on around us, and things that are not in good places, trying to get those things to a good place with a lot of the self-care activities that we've been talking about throughout this last bit of the show here. But the last things I definitely want to kind of put in here before we wrap up is basically talking about some of the more of the different things that we can do for ourselves, like practicing prioritizing things in our life, what's important, what needs to be done first, second, third, being more intentional in those areas, working on more relaxation activities, having more relaxing time, whether that be take a 5 minute, to sit in the car and just woosah for a few minutes. Definitely, if we feel like things are really, really a lot for us, going to a therapist or speaking with a lay counselor, sometimes those things would be helpful. And then also listening to calming music or a podcast. A podcast could be something that's educational, something you're interested in. I myself right now, I'm listening to podcasts about philosophy, and the philosophy I'm listening to right now is Stoicism. So it's something that really, really is interesting to me, and it's very calming and relaxing. Another thing to talk about is or think about is daily reading. I've also implemented where this year I've started reading. I'm doing 3 different books that I have kind of 3 different focuses on. Of course, one of the books is mine, Fragile Brokenness. But with the 3 books that I'm reading right now, I am actually reading a chapter or 2 a day when I have downtime. So that's taken a lot of me to be able to just kind of relax and sit there and read. And it's something I'm starting to really enjoy. Next one here is thinking about doing things that you love, doing something that you love, but doing that thing daily. If doing something you love is something that you can do on a daily basis, then do it. I'm a type of person, I like to drink tea. So I like to have a cup of tea and just relax. That's my thing right now. It's just a cup of tea and just really relax. Makes me feel really good. It's something I'm doing for myself, and it's something I'm telling myself I love myself by giving myself, whatever it is I'm getting in this tea. These most of the time it's not any calories in the tea, but it's definitely got different minerals and different vitamins and different things like that that's in the tea that's helpful to my body and helpful to me getting some, having some energy and being able to go and do the things I need to do for the most part. And like I said, it's relaxing. Other things to think about: getting some laughter in your life, being gentle and careful with yourself, increasing your self-awareness with positive self-talk, starting a new hobby, nurturing your passion, getting a massage, just, getting into a situation where you can actually stretch your body out. I mean, be able to get those muscles massaged. And then talking about stretching, complete body stretch, doing some yoga. That's also something that you can do. Daily breathing exercises. That's a big technique now where I have gotten into in the last year or so. Taking daily walks, focusing on calm activities, um, definitely practicing goal setting, taking a bubble bath, and even thinking about having practicing the art of asking for help, being able to ask people for help when you need help. So with all of that, Tremaine, I know there's some things I threw out there that you're probably like, yeah, those sound like some good ideas. Anything you want to expound upon?
I think you hit on all the stuff that I would have probably expounded upon.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I think, yeah, go ahead.
it sounds like I was gonna try something. In terms of just have it's really just finding your most relaxing spot.
Mhm. Yeah.
And what is that for you?
Exactly. Exactly. Um, I think a lot of times people don't realize that because people tell me, "Oh, meditation, I can't do it. I can't do it." And I was like, "Well, meditation, you can do meditation in different ways. I do meditation, I do a meditative walk, I do a meditative bath. Some days when I'm feeling, you know, great enough to do it, I can do a meditative jog because I'm not back to running yet. But you can do your meditation any which way you would like. Your meditation can be sitting there doing nothing at all, or your meditation can be the 5 minutes before you're out for the night and you go to sleep. You know what I mean? And I think people don't realize that. I think people think there's a certain way to do everything. And what I've learned in the years of meditation, the years of self care, the years of really starting to take care of me is that everything can be adjusted and everything can be modified. So,
Yeah, I mean,
mhm,
I think we're so used to hearing, something's right and something's wrong when we need to be hearing, well, how can I adjust it to myself?
exactly, exactly. And that's the way I tell people all the time. You have to think about the adjustment to yourself because you're not going to do anything that somebody else is doing and be perfectly on it or whatever the case may be. But if you do it the way you want to do it, then it might be a better outcome. Like I tell people, well, I'm working on swimming now. Well, swimming every week in the winter is not hard on my body, so I can do it. But then, my friend is saying swimming in the winter is a no no. They would not go in the water in the winter. And I'm like, well, I go swim. And then when I get out, that one day a week I go swim, I'm able to get on a treadmill for about 30 minutes before I even go outside. So, that's a difference, but everyone has a different way of doing it. But when, the warmer months come, then both of us are in there and we getting our swim on and we really practicing the swim thing. You know what I mean? So it's different for everybody, and everybody have different ways of doing things. The massage, I do not. I sometimes go to a massage therapist, but I don't do that often. And so finding a massage chair or my back massager or the foot massager, those things work really well for me. You know what I mean? Getting
Hmm.
yeah, getting you with your pedicure, your manicure and stuff. I don't do the pedicures as much, but I will soak my feet. You know what I mean? So I tell people a lot of times there's a way of, making it work for you. I'm making it something that you can keep up.
Hmm.
So yeah. So I am glad that everyone came to join us today as we're talking about emotional self-care for Black women. But of course, we're talking about emotional self-care in general also. The reason why I'm saying emotional self-care for Black women though is because again, I am going to be publishing a emotional self-care for Black women journal, and we will be announcing that probably in the next few months or so. It will be on Amazon, and we will be announcing it on all of our websites as well. But the biggest thing is that we want people to realize that they have to take care of themselves. And just the same way that self-care has probably been cultivated and integrated into a lot of different populations or parts of the community into their lifestyle, it's time for us as Black people in general to start to cultivate a lot of self-care in our lives too. I say it's the it's the soft woman era. It could be the soft man era also, or the taking care of yourself era for men. But it could be whatever you want it to be. You can adjust it to however you want to say it. But it is time for us to really start taking care of ourselves and stop being in such a go so hard scenario and situation in life where we're just half of the time beating ourselves down. So, Tremaine, I don't know if you agree with that or not, but that's kind of what we're going to wrap up with today.
I mean, I'm in full agreement.
Yes. All right, then. So, with that being said, we are happy again that you joined us for We Got Options with the Doctor and Son. We pray and hope that you have a wonderful weekend and that you come back and join us again next week at 8:30 a.m. on Friday morning for We Got Options with the Doctor and Son. Have a great one.